All right, so let's see. We've got table. Yes. What I mentioned, so I did upload a video where I did show how we can get your drawings to work, but I'm okay with both of these assignments that we're doing that are 3D that they're not on drawing. So if you just want to upload the DWG, I won't worry about it not having an upload for a PDF. I'll show you at the end of the table how it works and see how it works for you guys. But we'll start using that next week. So, but we'll just double check it here. So on the table, I have it's going to be 3D modeling, and we are doing. Let's see. I just have a table PDF that has the dimensions to make it. I also have this, which the other assignment had this as a resource too. The 3D objects had just a an old scan in of pictures from a book, a CAD book, and if you follow those methods, it'll get you there. I don't quite follow the exact same methods. I don't worry about working from coordinate points on this. I'm okay if I build these things wherever in space. And I'll kind of talk through why that is, why it doesn't matter if you build it, how they do it in these books or not. But you could, I mean, you could follow these step by steps in these book and it will get you there. I'm just going to kind of do maybe a simplified crash course way of how I would really work in 3D if the coordinates didn't matter, especially. So if the coordinates just don't matter for my output, like maybe to a machinist or whatever, then maybe I'm not going to draw by coordinates necessarily. So, um, um, so what I've got, so this is a resource. I'm probably not gonna open it up and use it. It's got more than just the exercises that are in there. It's got some information stuff. A lot of it's about moving your UCS all around this and using the different grid planes, and that's great. I mean, we can do it that way, but I just feel like I do mine just a little simplified and not quite so in depth that way. And so I made a PDF that just has, and at the end you're supposed to be able to, I want you to be able to make these two drawings without any dimensions, but we can hold off on making drawings till next week. And I'll just step you through the end how that might look. But really I just need to open this table PDF. So I have that. Um, I got to kind of get my toolbar back. Hold on just a minute. I've got my PDF open right here. So this has the dimensions I need to make this object. I don't think it matters which one we start with. Maybe they both have differences in how we're going to use this, but this will actually be using some of the commands of 3D, which we haven't done anything other than use some of the shape commands in yesterday with the 3D object. So this will be using some other commands. So I'm going to have this up on my other screen. I mean, it's just kind of weird. I call it Das Boot. It looks like a boot, right? So it's just from that old CAD book, just an exercise. So it's not something I invented or whatever, but I just took it to a PDF here so I could build it from this rather than having to build it from coordinate points, kind of. So I have all the dimensions I need to build it. Really, it's kind of like a box. So how I'm going to approach this thing, given the commands I already know from yesterday, is just there. I have box, cylinder, and pyramid and cone. I have all these commands. Really, if I look at this shape, it's kind of just like a box shape. It's been cut out maybe with cylinder cuts into it. And then I've added a cylinder up here, kind of as a solid cylinder on top. It's like a Das Boot that's a candlestick or something. So it's like St. Nicholas Day. Put your boots out. Hey, this is perfect. It is St. Nicholas Day. And this is a boot, kind of a candle boot. It's just to set out on your table. It's funny. So St. Nicholas Day is some German holiday, it's like supposed to be an indicator if your kids are good or bad. So if the boot gets like a little toy for kids in it, or if it gets, I think it's coal again or some horrible gift, then you know that you've been bad this year, and you have time to turn it around till Christmas, right? It's like last call for good kids, kind of. You got 3 weeks or less to get your crap together, kid, or you're gonna have no Christmas. Yeah, I'm probably butchering what the real holiday is about, but anyway, it's a cool holiday, St. Nicholas Day. We're gonna make a boot, Das Boot. So it's kind of like cylinder shapes and cut and box shapes and then cutouts. So I'm gonna have this up on my other screen. The way I'm gonna approach this though, and the way they kind of build it in the book is they build this little box for and I'll send myself to your guys' screen so you can see here. So those that are here in class, let me invade your space here. See what I'm looking at. All right. But the way the book shows it, and it's not super clear, you could, I mean, so you can build this a bunch of different ways. It's just like drawing anything. You can start in a lot of different ways and how you see shapes. But the way the book does it is they build like they build a box shape that would be kind of 4 inches by 6 by 2 inches. So they kind of build this box, and then they do these cuts in that box, and then they kind of extrude this box taller after they've done the cuts up to 7 inches tall, and then they add this little cylinder on top. So they kind of proceed that way, and but you wouldn't have to proceed that way. You could do, you could make a different shape cut. You could do this thing as a whole box, and then cut these out. I'll just kind of follow along with kind of roughly following what that document is on. So anyway, I'm gonna start with a box that is 4 by 6 by 2 anywhere in model space to build this. And this is the table. I mean, what I've got is two different objects on the table drawing assignment. It's just it is a table. The next sheet is a table, this one. And the first sheet is a boot. And they're in the same model space. And at the end, I just put the boot on the table. That's it. So it's kind of like a move at the end. So I'm just going to build the boot wherever though first, and I can move it later onto my table. So I'll go over to CAD here now, and I'm going to open up just our normal. These are in inches, right? Yeah, this is inches. So I'm gonna open up a B size inch template, and that's how I'm going to start. Just my same old ISU ASME B size template. I'll open that up real quick here. So I've got my templates here. And because like I said yesterday, I showed that even if you started, yeah, if you started with a 3D template, that's fine. We can still use our ASME ISU inch templates though. I know they have a viewport that we really won't need now because when we're actually drawing this way later down in the end of this, we don't really need the viewport. But just in model space here, that's what it would normally look like. I think it's pretty common you guys have to add that workspace to your bar to be able to turn this to a 3D modeling tab rather than the 3D drafting annotation, right? So just remember, I'm going to turn this to 3D modeling, or otherwise I don't have access to those commands. If you forget to do it there, maybe maybe the settings on your status bar are always there, and you can just toggle it here as well. That's fine. The only thing that's different is that this will keep it in the 2D wireframe like look, and how I identify that is my UCS looks like it's like a 2D, just like lines. So I just remember to come up here to my visualization tab, and I change this to something like realistic. The wireframe that we can use is this one. If you want to keep things in wireframe, it's the 3D wireframe, and you're in a wireframe drawing, but this will look like a 3D kind of UCS icon. That's kind of my visual indicator. I'll just do mine in realistic right now, or I think the one I told you that I like kind of the best is probably shaded with edges, but realistic is a close second place for me. When you put when you turn on, if you actually pick a 3D template, right, it usually defaults you to being in this like a realistic view, and then which activates, for me it activates my 3D mouse so I can roll out of that plane and look at my 3D plane like this. And remember, if you're not going to use the 3D mouse, or if at home you don't have it, remember it's going to be a hold down shift and hold down the scroll wheel to be able to do that orbit command. So that's probably, and that's how I use mine at home. Usually I'm a hold down shift, hold down scroll wheel at home is how I do that. Alternatively, you have that third way, which is over here on that little minus sign here. This is what's adding stuff to your right side of your screen here, right? And so if you turn on that navigation bar here, you can also just select it and then just use the left click of the mouse to do the orbiting. So that's probably my third and least used way to navigate in a 3D space here. I like my 3D mouse probably the best here. But what I'm going to do is just keep this on. I think I'm just on the world coordinate plane, and I'm not going to move the coordinate plane very much like they would in the book. I'm going to draw with this. It'll put my bottom of my boot just on this. It'll be kind of 0 in the Z axis direction. So I'm going to do a box command. Or I told you I think I'm going to do like a 4 by 2 inch box that's six. Oh wait, 4 by. All right, wait. Let me see. It's going to be 6 by 2 inch box that's 4 inches tall. So that's what I want to draw. 6 by 2 by 4. And it doesn't really matter which way I'd even orient that in model space either. So if I grab the box command, and if I come down here and just click any space, really what it has me is on the 0. It's gonna interpret that I'm on the 0 plane. for the Z dimension, and it gives me a place of X and Y coordinates here. I'm not even worried about that. I'm just putting it up here somewhere. But whether I build the base of that like this direction 6 by 2, or if I go this direction 6 by 2, it really wouldn't matter. I think I have the luxury of going either direction here. So I'm going to go this direction. It's going to be 6 inches in this direction, 6 tab 2. So that's kind of the footprint of my box is 6 by 2. And then I'm just going to go initially I'm going to go 4 inches tall here instead of the full 7 inches that it kind of shows on that dimension. So I'm just going to go 4 originally. And that's kind of how this box started. So it's just, nowhere in particular in model space. There it is, a 6. And then what we're going to do and so I've done that on the visible object layer, by the way, too. So that was my default when I opened mine. Mine's on the visible object layer. So this shape is that color. And if I brought up my properties panel, which I usually like to have, it'll show that if I select this, it's on that visible object layer, just as if it was 2D dimensional stuff. So what I kind of want to show that's way different than the book is that you can do construction kind of like we did. What I like to relate this to, and why I like these assignments coming right after our pictorial drawings, is because kind of the way we would locate things on our pictorial drawings, we would use construction material sometimes to find out where maybe the center of an iso circle was or whatever. Like I can just remember to kind of, I can still draw in 2D here on a surface of this and kind of make construction. I can do construction sketch work that will help me place things accurately because you have grips. The other thing you need to remember, so now that I'm in the 3D modeling environment, and I've done some 3D geometry, and this is something you may have to do every time you draw like this with these computers, is you may have to remember on your status bar to load the 3D object snaps. Because I can't say mine stay loaded, but I don't know if yours do. And it's just, we need to have these on here. The 2D object snaps, I kind of keep on a lot of those, and I'm going to keep those toggled on too, because even when I'm in 3D, some of the 2D snaps will be beneficial because I'll be drawing some 2D line work actually. And then make sure that your 3D snaps are on. And on the 3D object snaps, the ones that I kind of keep on are vertex, midpoint on edge, center of face, perpendicular. So those are my snaps that I can grip. They look similar to the green ones that we're used to for 2D snaps. Maybe they're blue in here, but so what I'm going to do, and which is different than the book a little bit, is I want to know where. Well, this one's kind of easy actually. The first, like I'm going to actually cut out. I'm going to draw a cylinder, and then I'm going to use it to cut this out here for this initial first kind of boot shape of that. So what I'm looking to do is like, where is the center of this circle? I'm going to use this circle as a cutting device, kind of like a trim device like we would use sometimes. So this is a radius of 3, and it's kind of up on like the center point of the circle is kind of the center or that edge of my box that I just drew, my 6 by 4 inch box. I'm going to be able to place my circle using those 3D object snaps right on the corner of my box. So how this kind of works, which is kind of weird, is if I'm on my home tab and I want to draw like a cylinder I'm going to use the shape command to do this cut actually. Next week we'll probably quit using these for the most part. Like I said, I usually don't use these, but I'm just use these for these first couple assignments because they are designed to use these commands. But so if I pick a cylinder, it's a cylinder solid essentially, right? It's like it does like my box made a solid. This is going to make a solid cylinder. That's not exactly what I want, but you can choose to like cut and subtract things. So even though I make it as a solid initially, I can actually use it as a cutting device. So I'll show you. The center of that circle is like this point here, though, on my box. It's going to be this little point right here. Like bring this over maybe somehow. Oh, I'm in a command. Sorry, I'll move this over. But the center of my circle is going to be right there on this edge. So if I pick cylinder, and then I come over here, and it wants to know where the center point of that base is. If I like hover over a surface, it's almost like I want to say, I'm going to base this cylinder off of a surface. Instead of having to move like the grid to be where I want it to be or move the UCS, I can just kind of locate that face like this, just hover over it for a minute, and I'm going to say this is going to be kind of my base surface that I'm going to work from. So what I do is I just hover on it like this, and then when I come over to this corner, as long as I stay, there's the grip. It's like this blue grip that's showing up, a 3D vertex. So as long as I've kind of referenced this face and then I've referenced a point, now if I left click here, it's going to build a cylinder in relation to that surface and from that point that I kind of like, my grip that I clicked on there. So that little technique is what will allow me to kind of build from an object rather than worry about moving everything around here. I'm kind of just working from, and this is the way I 3D draw it here, is I kind of draw some initial geometry and then I work from my geometry rather than worry about working, like moving a bunch of stuff in the model space. I just kind of like reference the surfaces that I want to work from. So this would work great. I'll just draw this. The radius is 3. It's also kind of just the same width here because I'm going to use it as a cut. I'm thinking about it going to be able to cut through this shape. So in order to cut all the way through here, it needs to at least be like 2 inches in that direction. So all that was like a center of circle. And now I've got like what seems like not what I want, but I can kind of see how if I can use it as a cut, it's going to cut this shape of this. So that works great as long as you reference the right surface. What you have to get kind of used to use this method. I'm going to undo my things. You can leave yours there, but I'm going to show you what happens if I'm in cylinder and want to do that. And this is, I referenced that plane and then I was able to lock in on that vertex. Well, if you reference this plane and you lock in on that vertex, what you'll notice is it's going to draw the circle in relation to that plane. It kind of uses that reference. If you pause on it's going to use that as your reference plane. Same way if I was here in the cylinder command and I came in here and hit this surface first to this point, it's going to try to draw that way. So this can be a little bit annoying. I mean, this is the way I like to do it because I'm just referencing geometry that I have rather than worry about, but you just have to, it can kind of misfire on you if you're just, if you're in here thinking that I want to reference this surface and snap in here, but you accidentally bump it a little bit like that. It's going to pick the last reference. And so I'm going to say here and then here and make sure that stays how I want it. And then I'm going to say that is 3 inches radius because that cylinder is being drawn by radius. And then in this direction, it's 2. I mean, if I go this way and put 2, it'll go that way, but I want it to go this way, 2. And then they are separate solids though, right? So if I come over here and I'm not in any command, and if I select them, that's a separate solid than this. So they, in order to select them both, you have to choose them both. They have tons of different grips now, right? I'm able to like stretch them, pull them, push them, change diameters. It's kind of like a 2D sketch that we've done all this semester. They're really not constrained at all. They're totally movable. It's kind of constrained to that center point where I began it at, but okay. So now how we would do this is it's considered like solid editing here, or kind of like it's kind of like what we would do to modify stuff, cut and trim. Only we kind of have like a different cut and trim version over here in this solid editing palette. And so if I just kind of, we won't use all of these. Some of these get really specific, but let me just look at the top ones from the left here. We could make those joined. We could join them into one. Like I said, when I selected them before, they're independent shapes. But if I chose join and selected those 2 shapes, they would become one shape. Right underneath that is subtract, which is what I'm going to use to cut this out. It's like subtracting one shape from the other. So that's the one I'm going to use. And then we have here, solid intersect creates this 3D solid or a 2D region from selected overlapping. Okay, so this gets a little more complicated. I would say I use this one less, maybe. You can see the part there they're showing is kind of complicated, actually. Interfere creates a temporary. Okay, so I don't know. I don't use this one much here. Slice it. Okay, we can cut and slice our thing. We can thicken it. Yeah, sometimes if we're making meshes, we can choose to thicken those meshes. I think these two relate a lot to each other. But we could extrude a face. I think if I just chose this and chose one of my faces, I could actually just immediately start extruding it in one direction. Extrude, to me, the word extrude just means what it shows. It kind of like it is like extrude is like making yeah, like stretching or pulling it. And then extrude has a bunch of different sub commands in it. Oh man, so it's a pretty detailed little that's why 3D Basics drops a lot of these real specific commands. And for what we're drawing, we could use the 3D Basic and not have to use the 3D modeling one, but I like to use the more complicated one, even though we don't use a lot of these commands for the couple weeks we draw on it. The one that's handy that's buried here is shell, but I don't know if I have any specific assignments that do this until we get to inventor and how to shell things. But I could make this, a shell is just going to make something actually hollow. So I could choose this box and then choose like a shell thickness, and then it would hollow out something. So this is a handy command to have for some reasons. Anyway, what we're going to do is a subtract. That's this one. So if I choose the subtract command, it's an order of operations thing. So it's kind of like it's kind of like a subtraction problem. You want to pick the one that you want to keep is the first one you select, and the one that you want to cut with is the second selection. So subtract command has an order of operations. So if I select it, it says select object. So if I select this one first, and then I think I hit enter, then it says subtract select objects. I'm going to subtract this one from it. And then if I hit enter, it just cuts it through and it actually kind of removes that shape. It almost just uses it as like a trim tool, essentially. So I view it as the same as what's going on as trim, only it's like a 3D trim. Because in 2D trim, you would draw like actual visible lines and then you'd use them to cut and trim. So it's kind of the same. If I do it the other way, I'll undo this real quick and just show you. You'll know that you kind of chose wrong if you chose subtract and you chose this one first and then this one. Yeah, it cuts it the other way like Pac-Man here. So order of operations matters. We'll do this, cut this one using this as my cutting tool. And there it goes. So now we have the part of a boot here. And now let's do, so I'm going to do the other cylindrical cut through this, which is right down here. There's a little like heel cut. So if I come back to my print here, I need to come over 2 inches over from this corner and then draw a cylinder that is 1 inch radius and have that be the one that kind of extrudes through and makes the cut. So I'll do that. I'll reference that geometry with a 1 inch. I think I can kind of like kind of do what I would like what I call as like cursor over. Let me try that. If not, I can draw construction material too. So let me come back to my shape. And let me pick cylinder. Cylinder. And I think if I want it to be cutting through this way, so I'm going to kind of reference this surface here and then highlight over this for a minute. I'm going to reference that surface, highlight, and I'm going to pull away. And I think I can pull away along that surface. Was it 2 inches or three? I can't remember. And that just cursored me over 2 inches. I'll do that again, but I'll just make sure that it is two, right? Yeah, it's 2 inches over to the center of this. And it's on that bottom edge plane there. So I'm just going to draw the full cylinder and pretty much cut half of it. So let's see here. So yeah, that actually does work like you would cursor over on your 2D drawings. As long as you stay, with this plane selected and then that point and then drag along it here and say two, it's going to move you over to that 2 inches over from there, and it'll allow you to put this 1 inch radius cylinder in. Well, yeah. Oh, oh no. I can pause for just a minute. Yeah, make sure your polar tracking is on, right? Like if I feel like if my polar tracking's not on, maybe this won't work. Let me see. So if I'm cylinder, I'm referencing that plane. I'm not clicking anything yet. I'm just hovering over it. Then I'm hovering over that point, and then I'm pulling along it 2 inches over. Mine works pretty good, but what I want to show you is if it doesn't work, but I keep my polar tracking on. I don't know if that's what's helping me or not. For sure, it's giving me my green, like, or maybe it's my snap tracking, my object snap tracking. Make sure that one's on. That one might be the one that's causing my problems here. Okay. Yeah, I think it might be I think it is your, this one maybe, is the object snap tracking, the little angular looking one. If that's not on, I feel like I can't like hover maybe, or I can't cursor over. I can definitely lock in on that and lock in on the point and then drag away, but it won't let me. Yeah, I think you're right. It won't recognize that I'm kind of following a point here. So if this one's not on, I feel like that might be your trouble. Object snap tracking. That one was on, still not helping. You don't get this like you don't get this when you lock in on the point and hover for just a second and then start pulling away. You have to follow it pretty, like the problem with that is like the hovering problem really is that I have to be pretty accurate when I pull away, that it starts to track and I start to see but I'll show you another way. Rather than try to beat our heads against the wall, I don't know. Let me show you how another way would work and I like to show this too, is that we can draw on this surface with 2D drawing. So right next to the editing here is this, I feel like it's almost like a crunched in draw. Like our 2D drawing commands are like right here for the most part, lines and polylines even shapes and rectangles and our circle commands are all right here. We have access to kind of our, we're used to those commands here. So I could do like some construction work here. Yeah, so usually if I'm going to draw something that's kind of reference, like if I would want to draw a line from here over that's 2 inches over with that would have an endpoint that I could snap to, because my with even with 3D objects, I can snap to 2D object snaps as well. So I could come over here to construct, and I would do this on a construction layer like I would on a 2D drawing, like construction layer. This is the line command for construction or for in here. It's buried right here, line. And I can come over and do the same thing where I kind of hover on that surface for a minute, hover on this point, but I could actually snap to this now. Now you could come in here with your snaps on, make sure you're grabbing the right snap. Sometimes you got to rotate this object around to where you can feel like you're getting the right corner. And then I'm just going to draw along that edge. Can you do this? Will this allow you to track along an edge like this? Yeah, let me come over. I'll resume my recording here. Let's see. Jump in here. Yeah. Okay. So this is an alternate way if you don't like to cursor over, if you just like to have some geometry to snap to. It can be hard to see. Even I've drawn like a 2 inch line there from this corner along that edge. And so it has an endpoint and a midpoint. It can be hard to see. And so, but you have the option to like jump around to different views and see if it makes it see if it's easier to see. Like this wireframe, I can see it way easier there. And if you draw in 3D here, you just got to kind of like, I don't know, you almost become like Superman view, but you have to like, to me, I have to rotate it around so I can kind of keep my orientation a little bit. But what I would do here is I could draw a cylinder and I can keep this on the construction layer. Really, I'm using this cylinder as a cut through. So I actually really, I could have drawn the first cylinder when I kept the boot as a construction cut. Because what you'll notice is when you do cylinders on those layers, they'll match those color properties. But if I turn off, sometimes if I turn off that, I can still kind of reference that edge, right? So say here, it knows it's 3D even though it looks 2D. I can still reference this surface, come down and say, oh, well, here's the endpoint of the line. There's the grip that I'm looking for. And then if I draw that, it'll be in relation to that surface plane. And then this is going to be a 1 inch. And then see, this is kind of what stuff like this will look like in 2D or in a wireframe. And then this is going to be 2 inches long. So that's kind of what this this is like a construction cylinder. It's not super important what layer I put this on because it is just going to be a subtraction type cut. So if I go back to my like shaded with edges or realistic, that's kind of what that looks like. A lot of different ways I could get there though. It just takes some familiarity with the commands and kind of trying it a few different ways to see what works for you. But and then I just do the subtract of this again now. So what I want to do is subtract from this object this, and then say, well, I think I had to select him and then hit enter. So I have to like subtract this, enter, from this, enter, and then it will cut it. Of course, my little line stays there, but it's just construction material that I can turn off later. Or if you didn't put that in, that's okay too. I just want to show you that you can 2D sketch on a face. So that is really related to Inventor, by the way. Like I'm going to use like surface faces to do other 2D sketches. So that's kind of a technique I'll use later. And so there's my boot. And then to get the top part, it's pretty easy because I've kind of got the shape of it here. So I can actually just choose to like extend this up. So let me show you one more command and how I think we could use box, but and I think maybe if I just select this, well, no, that's not going to be how I want to do it. I'm going to do like an extrude, and I'll show you. I'll do this as visible object works. I'm going to jump back over to visible object, and then I'm going to do an extrude. And I think it's like, what do I want to extrude? Well, this, and then that maybe won't work. I think it's press pull. Let me see. Which one am I going to use here? Or maybe I have to redraw that. I don't know. Let me see. Press pull box. Or I think I I don't know if I have a grip to actually extend that up. So I feel like let me see, press pull. That's the one I want to use. I was thinking it was extrude, but press pull will work. It'll actually just work from a surface. Like it recognizes this or any of these as surfaces. So if I select press pull, and then I hover over this surface for a minute. It recognizes the boundary of that surface. And really what we need is we need to have this go up 3 more inches. So I just like select press pull and then pull it up 3 more inches. Yeah, go ahead, David.
Um, you have the repurpose thing.
Yes. Yeah, let me get off your stop sharing from you and give you control back. Yeah, let me know when you're. So that is how press pull works though. Like I could, let me see this. I could well, you're back in. Okay, cool. Um it doesn't even really need a sketch to press pull. It'll recognize just kind of boundaries of shapes, right? So I think this would work if I grabbed press pull command and went over here to this surface. I could press pull this thing longer this way. So it's just a really quick way to like do what I just did there. It's an easy way to take, it'll identify without even a sketch these surface boundaries. And so anyway, that can be pretty handy. The last thing this thing needs is just another cylinder off the top, right? So let me pull up the print here. So I've got this thing. I just extended it 3 inches with the press pull command. So now I'm at a full 7 inches. And then this above here is the difference between 10 and 7. So this is a 3 inch cylinder tall, and it's an inch in diameter, so a half-inch radius here. And then it looks like it's centered. Yeah, it is centered in this. This is I think this is a 3 by 2 little square on my top. And so this is just centered in that. And one of the grips for 3D grips is center of face or center geometric center, right? So if I come over here, I just want to place it in the center. So one of the yeah, center of face is that one is definitely a 3D grip that I have. Uh, the 2D grip, it might recognize that it's also the geometric center of this shape. So I can't say, maybe I've got a couple grips that'll fire off. But what I want to do is do a cylinder, another cylinder move here. I'm on my visible object layer. I'm going to reference this surface, and then I'm just going to look at the grips I have. I would have the edges, midpoints, and vertexes here, but there is the geometric kind of center or the center of that face that's showing up. So this is the way I can just snap to that face and then define its radius, which is going to be 0.5 because it's a 1 inch diameter cylinder on top here, the candlestick, and then it's just 3 inches tall. So that is Das Boot. And now we just need to do a table to put Das Boot on. Anywhere out here in model space, doesn't matter where. So there's my boot, it's ready to go. Yeah, you would to move it around, you can grip and move it. I think the last thing it has us do is that is one unit, and then this is, or sorry, one shape. This is one solid shape, and here's another solid shape. So we can join these so that when I go to move them, because if I go to use the move command and I want to move this thing, just like I would any 2D move, I'd select that. I'd have to select both of them in order to move it. And I'd have to select the other geometry if I want to move it to any of the construction geometry. So in this case, I think I'll do a union of these two. I don't want the cylinder to be broke free of Das Boot. So I'm going to say union this one to this one, hit enter, and then I've got one selectable unit there. All right. So now let's build a table. And what's that? Oh yeah, for sure. That one is using, so I've got, let me see, I'll go back and tell these are two separate, right? Yours should be the same way. If you've drawn them separately, they're always kind of independent solids. And then I just use this union one above the subtract. So the only thing we've used here, I think, is subtract, but here's union. And it will do, I feel like it's kind of like a join command. Yeah, this one and this one. I selected them both, what I wanted to join, and then I hit enter. And now I've got one selectable unit. So it's all joined. So with that being said, like this is enough model that we can export. There's a file like AutoCAD will export the kind of file type that a 3D printer needs to read. So we could technically 3D print Das Boot, but we won't because it's kind of a I should 3D print Das Boot. Yeah. If I really made it a candlestick holder, then it would probably burn because of fire. I don't think plastic's the best thing to hold candle. But anyway, yeah, I should, huh? So now let's build a table, and it's going to be using kind of the similar commands. I'm really just going to be using the solid commands is kind of what I view these as, is they're just solid shapes. So if I look at my table drawing, so that one's done. Here's my table drawing. It's got a tabletop of like four pieces, and those four pieces are like six inches by 48 by 2 inches. So I've got these. I know this print a little bit better. You guys probably haven't looked at it too much, but that so each one of these little individual planks for my top are 4 by 4, or sorry, 6 by 48 by 2 inches. It's like a 2 by 6 top, 48 inches long. Four of those, cool. And then underneath to kind of hold the legs, it's got another plank underneath it that's 2 inches thick as well. 2 by 4, I think. Yeah, 2 by 4 by 24 inches long on each end to kind of hold all the top planks together. And then it's got the four legs that are that I have the dimensions for how they're placed there, and they are 4 inches in diameter. So I built this thing kind of from the top and from the top down. You could build it you could build it anyway. And I think if you follow the directions from the book, they're just they're doing everything by coordinate points. I'm going to do mine how I did that boot and just kind of do it from whatever I start with is going to be my reference material for everything else. So I feel like I started with a tabletop, and yeah, see Aria, have a good weekend. All right. And because I really don't care where it's at in model space. I mean, if I did care, maybe I would, but for me, it's not going to be this particular drawing. I'm not concerned at all of where it lives in model space. So I think I'm going to start with my tabletop just on this. I'm going to keep the same grid open, just that world coordinate. I'm just on the world plane here. And so when I build my first tabletop, it's going to be right against the same, like where the bottom of my boot is here at the 0 point of the Z axis here. And so then I'll just build it from there down into kind of negative Z land, but that's okay. Because like I said, I'm not really concerned of where it lives in this model space right now. So I'm going to start with one tabletop blank as a yeah, as a box, I think. So what I'm going to do is a box command. And this isn't the only way you can do this. You can do this, you could build it anywhere in model space, starting with the legs or whatever. It really wouldn't matter. I'll just start with the tabletop for no other reason, and it's okay. So the box for one of the planks kind of would be and I'm on the visible object layer. It would be they're 48 inches in this direction. I guess I'm going to draw them this way, not 448, but let's do 48. 48 tab, and they're 6 inches wide this way. Six. So I'm doing my little plank is like a 48 by 6 box, and then it's 2 inches tall. So there's one plank right there, right? It's 48 by 6 by 2 inches. And then it has all those faces that I can now reference. And so I could choose I can do the array command. So I have control, like my modify tab has arrays still, like polar arrays, path arrays. So I really have access to some stuff that I'm used to using. I could just do copy as well. Here's copy. Each one of these palettes is really crammed, and all you see is the real, the hieroglyphic here. But I think maybe I'll just do a copy of this like 4 times. Um, and so I'm going to do a copy of this particular object here. So I've selected my object, hit enter, and it says what base points. Well, I guess I'm gonna stack them up right here along. So I think I'll use this point right here, because then I can pick this point, and then I have control of that copy, and I can hook it to here. So I can just snap it to the other side of it, right? There's one, and then I can snap it here. There's two, three, and then there's four of these across like that. So I just like copying a circle or copying anything we did, it's just I'm copying 3D geometry, and I kind of have to be strategic in what point I copied by. So that was my strategy, is I used a point that was going to be in common with all these as I moved across. I could have used the bottom point as well and copied from here. Yeah. If I would have used this point, I wouldn't have had something to reference when I moved it over. So that was kind of a strategic, and I just escaped the command just like I would. So now I got my tabletop, simple. And that's going to be my top, which means this is going to be my front. So if I go to a drawing, that's kind of how this is oriented. It's going to be my front view. It's going to be my top. And that kind of matches my view cube right now. Front is going to end up like this. So, all right. So now all I do is I want to put those two pieces on the bottom. And so I can just like flip this thing upside down. So I just flipped it over with my 3D mouse, because what I want is some planks underneath here. Sometimes when I do this, I might turn off the grid, but if it helps you keep it, I really keep a close eye on my UCS when I do that, just so I can remember, am I upside down or am I right side up? my boot kind of helps me keep orientation a little bit too. So here's the upside down of this. Hey, it's Stranger Things reference to the upside down. And so here's the bottom side where I would have these little, what are they? They're 2 by 4 by 24 inch little planks. And so I feel like I can just kind of like come over here to my box command. I don't want to build them from this. I want to build them from this surface or this or this surface or this. But I'm going to reference this surface and then come in here to this point. I think I'm going to click left click. This is going to be how my box would be built right here, right? So I actually clicked on that corner. Now I have control over the 2 dimensions of this box. Is going to be 4 inches in this direction, 4 tab, and then it's 24 inches long, or you could probably reference the edge here, but I think I'm just going to type in 24 and there, and then it's going to go up this way too, not down in, but up this way too. So that's just a box across the box, and it's on the bottom side like that. Yeah, if I have my grid on, it'll just look like that. It'll look like half of it's on one side of the grid and half of it's on the other. That grid is 0 of the x-axis. But that doesn't matter to me so much. I'm just using geometry to build geometry, and it's really not going to impact how it would show up on a print anyway. It doesn't matter if it's in negative Z land or positive Z land. It doesn't really matter. Just like it never really mattered what quadrant in X, Y that you really drew in at all. It doesn't matter when it doesn't matter. And for most things we've drawn, it just has never mattered, actually. It's the same way here. So I'm going to do another copy of this, though. I'm going to copy this over to there. So I'll use that. I want to lock it in with this outside point. So I'll use this little point here. So I'll say copy this, wherever that is, copy this particular solid from this point. I'm going to copy that. Well, that's not exactly right. I got to think about this again, because if I copy from there, I place it over here, that's no good. So I got to strategically do this again. Copy this object from this point over to this point. That looks better. So there's my last piece copied over. And now we just need some legs. And I think I ended up using just my array command for legs. So I think I drew one leg here where it goes, and then I just arrayed it. And so I just need to find out where that would go. And I could put the first leg on any corner here, but I think or you could copy and paste them over too. But the way there, I have to have I don't have the exact grips on any outside edge where the center of that would be. So kind of like on our pictorial stuff, I'm going to draw some 2D drawing of that crosshair where the center of that leg would go on the surface that I want it to touch, which is that bottommost surface of those last parts we just drew. So I'm going to come in on that and come in like 2 inches and 3 inches. That's what I'm looking at this. Let me zoom in here a little bit. So I'm going to build myself a little grid here, or even I'm just going to draw some construction lines to create this point right here that come over 2 by 3. So it's 3 inches in from the edge, 2 inches over from the left or right side, and then let's do that. So I come here, and I'm going to use my construction material, my construction layer, to just draw some construction lines. Just want to figure out where that crossing is. So I'm going to use a line command here on draw, line. I'm going to draw on this face. So I'm just going to hover for a second. And I can click. I'm going to left click here and just draw a line from here. From here, it goes over, I think, 2 inches. Yeah. So I'm going to draw it and then hover. You can kind of see like my polar snap tracking is going to want to kind of stay on, these grid planes in a way. It'll help me stay parallel to that or parallel to this. Just look for those grid snap tracking. And then I'm coming this way. Really, it comes over to the midpoint. I could just snap there, or I could say it's 2 inches over. And then from this direction, if I just stay and look for that like 90 degree, there's a perpendicular line that I'm kind of drawing to that. And it's 3 inches over from here. So really, I just drew two little lines, 2 inches over, 3 inches over. The end point of this line now is the center for some 3D drawing now. So that's using some 2D geometry to create some 3D geometry. So this is not what you would find in that handout at all. This is how I would draw based off geometry. And that's how I do most 3D modeling in Inventor or here. I'm just going to build some part of my thing and then build off of it, kind of. That's what I've done here, is just kind of pick anything to start. Like I said, I could have started with the legs and then kind of build from the legs. I chose to start with the tabletop. There's really no right or wrong. I just use geometry to reference other geometry. So now I've got my little sketch that's on that particular plane, and it has an endpoint. So I should be able to come over here to my visible object layer and place a cylinder using that as the so if I reference this plane so that it's going to build my cylinder the right way, and then if I'm looking for this 2D geometry, an endpoint here, I think it's that one. Yeah, I think it's that one. Kind of shows up like that. These are 4 inch in diameter, right? I think a 4 inch, so it's 2 inch radius, which essentially is all the way across that thing. And then I can't remember the height of this. I should have looked that before let me see. Let me zoom back out here. So it's 30 inches. Those legs are 30 inches long. It's probably actually a legit table length. So there's 30. Bam. Here's my upside down or my right side up. So it didn't matter where I started. To me, it doesn't matter which leg I'm going to start with. But there it is. And then I could do a lot of things. I could do more sketches over here to have those points to be able to copy and paste that to, or I'll just do the array command. But in order to do the array, it's going to want to know, the spacings that we're going to need. We'll have rows and columns. So maybe I'll just do some math off my print and decide from center to center, what is that dimension? And then from center to center this way, what's that dimension? So I need to kind of know that to do an array is like it's going to place them by center to center. So let me look at my print here and see if I can figure that out. So if this is 48, and if these things came in 2 inches, so that means, and that's typical. So all these legs are going to kind of be centered 2 inches in. So I say it's 48 minus 4. So I think they're 44 inches between centers here. That's what I come up with. 44 center to center that way. And then this way, it would have been nice if I would have put that dimension on here, but I didn't. So I've got to look at that and say, well, it's 24, and then it comes in 3 inches off each side. So that means 24 minus 6 would be 18. Yeah, so I feel like this spacing from center to center of leg here is 18 inches and 44 this other way. So that's what I need to know. Your array kind of builds columns and rows, and you just have to identify which, it's going to just pick which ones are columns and which ones are rows. And it's not going to matter for me as long as I know one of my widths is going to be 44, the other one's going to be 18. So let's go over my model here and watch how, array works like it did with 2D stuff. Here's my array. I'm doing a rectangular array of this particular object, just that one. So I'm gonna hit that one and enter. And then it just builds, I think this is default. It builds like like a 3x4 going in totally the wrong direction than I want to go. That's okay. It's just because it's building positive values. Like I think normally when it populates this table, it's all positive values, but we can push those with an array. We can push them the other direction with negative values essentially. So there's my one keeper, and technically it built 4 columns. It's calling it. So it built 4 columns. We only need 2 columns. I can tell that now. I only need 2 columns. So I'll hit 2 and enter, and they're going the wrong direction, and they're way farther apart than there should be 44 inches here instead of 6. This is the in between. So I'm going to say 44. Then if you hit enter, then it's going the wrong direction, right? So then all I have to do is say, well, that's the wrong direction. Maybe make this a negative value. It's going to be 44 in the other direction, and that pushes it that way. So it's a positive value for how many I have, and then it's like I can use positive or negative values to change the direction of an array. And then the other direction, I only need 2 in that direction as well. So instead of having 3, I just need 2 rows, but I need them to go 18 inches apart. And of course, that's going the wrong direction, but the right value. So let's say it's negative 18 then. Negative 18. And that places that array like that. And then there'll always be, they'll always have this array relationship, which we could break or we could keep it. So if I close this array, or if I just say enter, then it's done. And that is my table. Totally built different than the book, but it's just like, that's one way to do it. There's another 100 different ways. We could all build this thing different. And then I just move my DOS boot onto the table. So I didn't really care. I think I just used whatever grip would show up here on the top to move it up to, because technically it's kind of like above it. And so if I'll move it with its little construction geometry, so everything it came with there. So I'll just say move. I'll just select everything here, right? It's going to have all that geometry. And then it's going to just be like any kind of move command. I'll select my stuff first, then hit enter, and then it wants to know the base point. So I'll just pick some corner on the bottom of the boot. There it is. There's a 3D snap showing up. I'll say that. I'm going to move it to And I think I should be able to highlight, I should be able to move this up in space, maybe. Yeah, I selected some geometry. That is the center of that one plank. And so it doesn't really matter, but it did move it up too. So depending on, so this can be a little tricky. Let me do that again. I think you can get that wrong quite a bit, and it might stay on the other. I'll do another move and see if I can mess this up a little bit. Move that. So if I just move that, you have to be careful because there's different snaps on this 3D geometry. It can be hard to tell if you're on like a snap that's on this particular plane, like down in like this, or one that's above. That's why some people, when they might move stuff in 3D land, because because even though it's 3D geometry, it'll still kind of show those snaps that are on the opposite side of it. So going to the 3D wireframe can kind of be helpful, not the 2D wireframe, just the other wireframe here. Because I don't know, it gets a little bit confusing, but sometimes you can see through it better, or maybe the X-ray one is good. You could try different ones. But now if I say move this, so by maybe that point again. And then if I come up to here, sometimes it's easier to see which maybe it's not any easier to see. Actually, it's maybe worse. Maybe the X-ray might be better or something. Yeah, that might be the better one. It gives you a little bit of a 3D look. And then if I'm going to move that thing, maybe I can make sense out of which grip is firing off easier. If I just kind of rotate around, you have to to me, I kind of rotate around things to get an idea of like which grip am I going to hit? There's one there. And I could place it on anywhere. You have like midpoint grips on those edges on top and bottom, but that just helps to me. It helps me kind of like figure out which surface am I placing these on. Oh yeah, that's the correct surface on there. So, and then I would turn off my construction material, and then I might go to just to shaded with edges or realistic. I think they're real common, right? I just like the hard edge like that. You can see that because the edges really contain our grips generally, so I like to be able to see them really, really good. And I think realistic does a pretty decent job of that too. Maybe they're just a little more subtle where that shaded with edges is pretty vibrant edge. But either way, that's the finished Das Boot on table. And then I'll show you what so the last part of this video I'll just show you. So mine has a B-size sheet, and so how you don't have to do this for this assignment. I'm okay if you just save this. So I would save this as this boot drawing here. Let's see where I'm at. I gotta go to my lab, my week 14. I have my table. I just need to do, it's a table, but it's in class here. So I've got my drawing saved. That's all you have to turn in for the assignment as far as I'm concerned for this week. Because what we were having trouble with, and I'll reiterate it. I did a little 18-minute video that shows how to fix that, but um what's going on for you guys, which probably won't happen for me, is you'll choose this base and we want to go from model space. And then usually it'll grind away like this for you guys. And then it'll come up with it needs to load a program. And if you just hit yes, download that or say install it, then it will take, maybe it takes 5 minutes or a little less to run that little program. When that thing's done, it brings up a dialog box that says restart or not now, and just click the not now. So what we were having trouble with is if we hit restart, it always wants to redo it again and again. But if you hit not now, it'll just let you use this. And then you can do what I'm doing now. The second time you go to use it, it'll be like this. Now it says select objects, and I can select the objects. So if I was putting them both on model space or into paper space, I would choose them both here. Oh, yeah, and these are all separate, so I don't have to sit here and choose like my entire objects here. This one too. So I'm going to say I want all these objects on a print, which once you said not now, you'd be able to do this. Because then once you've selected them, you just hit enter. Then it brings up the dialog box that says what sheet. It's going to populate. Mine only has one sheet, but if I had multiple sheets, I could kind of toggle through them here. And I think I just use the down arrow key, and I would be able to like pick which other sheets I have here, up or down. It might I don't know. I'll have to experiment with if I had multiple sheets, how do I know which sheet to put it on? I think if I just like reference that sheet and then come and do it, maybe it'll pick that sheet first. But I think there's some order of operations there stuff too, but here we go. I hit enter, then it will take me to that sheet, and then it will take me to that sheet, and it'll be the parent view is going to want to be the base view is going to be or I should say this parent view is what we would call this is going to be the front view. And so then I would place this just by saying just by left clicking, place it. Then it always bring every time you place a parent view, it's going to bring up the options to modify what that view looks like, its scale, and how it's displayed. And you can always get back to this. You can always edit this view later. But this is what we call the parent view. And so if I just hit enter, I'm not going to change anything really. I think it's just going to come in as its default, which might be shaded looking without edges. I don't know. But then it immediately goes into, and what I should have got done, let me back this up again and say, so I don't have, what I should have done is come to my drawing first and say, you don't need a viewport for this type of drawing. You actually can get rid of your viewports and have like a clean slate here. Go back to model space, base view from model space, pick your objects, which you can mask select everything like this, hit enter. It's going to go on that sheet. So hit enter. It takes me back to the sheet. I think it kind of preloads a scale that it knows will fit. I think it kind of chooses a scale for you immediately because I didn't really set a scale or anything. I think it selects one that will fit, and then you can adjust it later though. But then I just left click to place it. Then I just hit enter to get out of the initial changes in the view. And then you're still in kind of a command that allows you to keep placing views. It just calls that first view the parent. And so this is the top view of that. So I could place that. We like top views and we like right side views. So I just like hover around this thing and it's going to put them in orthographic alignment. And then we like isometric views when they're so easy to make like this. So I'm just going to place this one over here. And then it still wants me to keep placing views. I can just hit enter or escape. And then the default, I think, is like this. It's like shaded, or it's like a view with hidden and visible lines, but not shaded. So it looked shaded for a minute, but now it looks like this. So what I want to show you is these, and the way these work together is they're all different selectable views. So I'm going to just select on them. That's the view, escape. That's that view escape. But if I go to move them, like this is a move, like I would almost move a viewport. And it even has like similar to it, like it has you access to the quick scaling like you would with a viewport. So that's very similar to the viewport controls you have on a normal viewport. So if I move this though, these things stay in orthographic alignment. So this is my parent. It says, if you want to move this, I'm moving these other ones along with it because I'm maintaining orthographic alignment. And then here, I can't really move it. It'll let me move it away from that view, but it won't let me move it out of orthographic alignment. And the same way with this one. This one will allow me to create some space between it, but it won't let me pull it left or right. It just wants to maintain that orthographic alignment. We're able to break that if we need to, but default is going to be to keep them in orthographic alignment like we would on our normal views. And so now I'll show you some of the other modifications you have with the view here is we could select this and the ribbon menu changes when you select, and edit view is how I would change this. This is how quick it is to make a section view though too. So or to go back in and make other projected views from it. So I have access back to that original menu. If I hit edit view here, it brings up that kind of original edit or these things here. So if I go through these, there's a lot of these I don't use. Let me just check what the select one says. Oh, I think I could choose to deselect an item here. So if I wasn't happy with what I brought into my view, I could go back in and edit and deselect items. So that's kind of a handy way. Goes back in and gives me some editing abilities if I selected the wrong objects or included stuff that I didn't want to include. I'll just cancel that for a minute and go back into that view and edit view again. So that's the select option. Hidden lines is it's kind of showing that I'm showing hidden lines. So if I select this, it gives me these preloaded options. I could just show visible lines. That looks like that. I'll go back in here again. I could show visible and hidden lines, which is that was the default for it. I could show shaded with visible lines. So that's kind of maybe what more of like an isometric view might be. And then I can do shaded with hidden lines. I could do get the whole thing, shaded, visible, and hidden lines. So that's an option. I think for mine when I uploaded mine, I think I just did shaded with visible lines. Um, or maybe we'll just do visible and hidden lines first. So yeah, I'll show you that. I'll leave that there like we would on our normal views here. If you notice here, if I select this view and go to its edit view, you'll notice that on in that particular case, if I go to the hidden lines section here, it has a separate box. It says it's driving this from parent. So if I know which one is the parent view and I make changes there, it will affect these other views because their default is to take whatever the parent is doing. And same with this view over here. So just so you know, that'll be the same way over here. If I look at it, this will also have a from parent type of selection. So let me go back to the parent view here to the edit view and look at the other tabs. So scale is where it's a decimal scale. It just assigned this scale 0.083. On a drawing, I might choose to make this something that's a little oh, I don't know, easier. I mean, I would want to put this scale on my drawing, so I could be like when I could use that as the scale, and I could come down here and say it's like 1 to 0.083. That would be fine. I would just want to whatever scale I place these at, or if I change them a little bit, I just want to match them in my title block eventually. So they can be a little bit different. 0.083, that's like a little bit bigger than a 16th scale. Pretty small scale, actually. It's kind of a big table to fit on this drawing. So I'd probably just keep it in a decimal scale and just adjust my ratio accordingly on my title block. The other thing I want to show you though, oh, what was the other couple more things just as I wrap up? That's the scale. Visibility, I don't think I changed too much, but there are reasons why we can choose this will actually affect like how maybe a cylinder like the cylinder cut that I did here, if I was looking at it here, I might be able to show those edges, which that great debate that we always had with like, do you show the round where the tangent points are, or do you leave them? Some of that's able to be controlled through this particular menu of interference edges, tangent edges, bend extents, thread features, present. So this is just kind of control over, like, I know the geometry has some of those edges that they don't naturally show by default, but there might be a scenario where I did want to show them. And this is how I might show some of those. Those might be considered tangent edges. Let me just check that out. Tangent edges, display tangent edges. Yes. Yes, maybe. And then exit. I don't know if that really did anything. Can't say I've messed this much. Select type, interference edges. It doesn't act like it's going to let me even change that. It's kind of funny. Thought it would. But either way, I don't see a big change. I thought I might at least be able to see that tangent edge come across here. I won't worry about that then right now, but I should get some control over which lines show and how they show. We can explore that a little bit later. What I do want to show is that sometimes when I do this, I don't love this kind of an isometric view, even though that's kind of how I'd want to display it in our normal orthographic projection views, show hidden lines and visible lines, right? That's our normal procedure. This is not how we normally do a pictorial drawing, so I could change this one, edit its view. Where's my little dial? Oh, it's here. I barely see it. I'm gonna change its hidden line work. I'm gonna say not from parent. Maybe I'm gonna do like just visible lines on this one, like we would with a normal, and I'll say exit here. So that's the way I can drive this away from being, bound by the parent and say, hey, independently, I can change these views to do different views or, different view types. And that's the way I could get rid of those hidden lines that we wouldn't normally draw anyway. So that is the gist. I just wanted to wrap that up at the end of this, that it will work on our computers. We just have to like not let it restart our computer once we kind of load that. What I'm kind of interested in is when, if you do that one day, if you come back in the next day, does it still have to reload that plugin? I'm anticipating that it probably does. And then the other thing I don't know about this is if you're at home and you've only downloaded CAD, will it still let you do that if you haven't downloaded Inventor? Because this is something I don't know. Here on our computers here, we have Inventor and CAD loaded on them. I do too on this computer, and I do too at home. So I've never had an issue where if you haven't downloaded Inventor on a home computer and you try to do this base view kind of work, I don't know if it'll work if you don't have both programs on your computer. So I can't say from experience if I know that. And if it doesn't work and you only have CAD loaded, that could be the reason. It's because you don't have Inventor. And really what is going on here is it's like the operability that's found in Inventor is able to kind of like plug in and use in CAD. And but it might work because it just might be this thing that it's downloading from Autodesk, be able to function, and it's not really bringing it from the Inventor program on your computer. But I'd be interested to know that if anybody works over the weekend on that, and if they still have trouble, it won't work. It might be because you don't have Inventor and AutoCAD installed, but I can't say for sure. So a little side note there. And the last thing I want to say about this is, um, what do I want to say? I'm going to delete all these real quick and show something. Oh, not everything there, just my views here. If I delete this, delete my views here, because you don't have to do that for this assignment. But what I want to show is if you're on your paper space and you go to place a base view, because you really have the same home tab and you have the base view tab here. But if you're on paper space and you select base view from model space, I think it's going to bring in everything there. It's not going to allow you to like individually select at this point. It's going to just bring in your model space, no matter how big or elaborate that is. It's going to all try to fit it in on this page if you're bringing in the base view from the paper, which works well if it's individual items. In this case, I could place this and place these other views momentarily here. Hit enter. I feel like I could go into the parent view, say edit view, select, and let's say I didn't want to select the boot maybe. So I think I can hold down shift and deselect it and then hit enter maybe. It will get rid of that in that view. So that would be I can always modify this later and say, hey, I brought in everything I know, but with that select option, I can always deselect it from my view. That was like holding everything was selected, and I held down shift and selected the boot again and got rid of it in my views. So this works well. I mean, it just brings in everything, and then I could choose to omit stuff as needed, or I can always, if I would say it's more common for me to say I'm going to go to my paper space from here, and I'm going to be able to select the things that I want to take to paper space. So maybe it's just me kind of doing that selecting thing first rather than second, and because I can always mass select everything here too and take it to paper space, or I could just be selective in what I want to take. Like maybe it's only this that I'm taking to paper space. Then when I say that, there's my boot coming to paper space now only. So I would say I probably go to paper space more from model space when I'm doing 3D modeling than I go to the paper space and then bring everything in from the model space and then unselect it. I don't know. It's just two different workflows. Both will work. We get to the same ends, but and then we'll explore a lot of that next week because we want to, we're drafters, so we learn how to model stuff, yes, but then we always learn how to document stuff, and that's why we're drafters. So we know the documentation process. So next week we'll really dive into that, just documenting everything. Anything that we model next week will absolutely go to a PDF, and then we'll even start dimensioning it there because it's just a little bit different dimensioning because it's kind of on a paper space dimensioning. It's still annotative, it still works well, and anyway, we'll explore that next week. So that's the end of this. That's the end of this long-winded video. So we'll catch you guys on the next one.